Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time for yet another Fic Rec Friday. Today, we're gonna get a bit more than 5 because there's a couple of series here, so gonna get some extra recs. I hope you're excited. Now, of course, as we do every time, if you've missed any of the previous installments, which of course will be down below, or you can click the card, we have to do a bit of a disclaimer. You can expect to see all kinds of fics here. Shipping rivals, problematic themes, the crackish, just pretty much anything. So, be prepared. Also, as always, it must be reiterated that this is not a bashing space. If an idea or a rec doesn't sound like it will be for you, well, hopefully one of the others will. Or maybe one of the many recs left down below by the commenters, which are all very exciting, and I've been making my way through them. Thank you so much. Please keep leaving them, and also thank you to everybody who's emailed me. Yes, I did get your emails, and I'm trying to make my way through them. However, at the time of this recording, Venom happened, and now I'm just in that Venom x Eddie tag. I live there now. That's my home. As always, also, please do not reach out to harass any of the people suggesting fics or the authors or anything like that. While one doesn't have to like everything, let us all endeavor to be respectful. Each time, disclaimer faster and faster. It's great. So of course that means that we can get to what you all came here for, which is recs. Let's do this. We're going to start off by hopping into a classic fandom, one that's always going and will probably have another resurgence because there's a new series on the horizon. We're talking about the giant Tolkien-based realm that is Lord of the Rings. Now, when the trilogy came out back in the day, the early 2000s, it was very well received and also had a huge onslaught of fan fiction, which at the time was really starting to proliferate the digital landscape and provide a new refuge for those who were already part of the book fandom. However, as we've talked about before, things were a little different. Fics tended to be organized on individual sites or fan forums, and the giant sites that house massive collections were just emerging. One of those on the forefront was fanfiction.net. It is unfortunately also around this time that there were purges. Lots and lots of fics were lost in these great purges back in the day, some never to be found again. We really need to talk about the purges. These purges specifically targeted not safe for work pieces, so mature content or in general slash. Indeed, there was a time where a piece being a work of slash fiction meant that it had to be rated PG-13. Or at least people would rate it PG-13 to try and avoid any ire from followers. Times have changed. All of that is to say that there is a wide array of slash fiction for Lord of the Rings that has vanished to time. Some of it has come back, and some of it not so much because the pairing might have been rarer, as was the case with the pairing of Legolas and Gimli, which is a very long-winded way to say that there was a fic that I had that I lost, but I did find this wonderful friendship fic instead, because as much as there was pairing of these two, there was also gen friendship fic. Because what's better than an elf and a dwarf being friends? Cross-species friendship. For everyone. This fic is called Failed Aspirations by Talking Hawk. It is one chapter, word count 5069. A lot of Legolas and Gimli fics deal with the two having experiences in the elf realm, specifically Legolas taking Gimli around to meet his friends and family. This fic deals with Legolas and Gimli coming to Legolas's home realm, and Gimli experiencing firsthand the father-son disappointment dynamic, because A+ parenting also exists in this genre. So, this fic deals with Gimli witnessing these events and trying to find a way to maybe bridge that gap. It's fun, the players are all well characterized, and it reads like a little bit of an extra adventure that you could see happening, maybe as a continuation or a missing scene or an aside. Which is one of the great things about the Lord of the Rings fandom in general. It's so large that you can really come up with a lot of different adventures that still feel like they fit. You're not confined to the canon occurrences, which you never are, but certain fandoms lend themselves more towards working within the canon and others towards exploring the world outside it. So, if you're a fan of these two characters and their friendship, or just want to explore what that looked like, well, this is the fic for you. Also, did you lose any fics in the purges? I lost so many. I didn't realize how many I'd lost until recently, and it was pretty sad. Next, we're going back to another older fandom. Older, relatively speaking. We're gonna hop back to the Bat Jokes fandom. which has had a decently long history and a lot of changes recently that have made it much more accessible to more shippers. However, there were Bat-Jokes shippers even when the ship seemed completely unviable. We're actually going to go back to 2007 for this one, which is just 1 year before Bat-Jokes' first really big hurrah, post The Dark Knight in 2008, the Nolanverse. So this deals with a comic verse Batman and Joker, also merging some of the other canon elements in there from the show, just a tiny bit. It's mostly comic based. This fic is called The Quiet Night by Jienza. It is 1 chapter, word count 2,468. This fic operates under the assumption that a lot of people were and still are under, that the Joker is fully aware of who Batman is. It's not a secret, it's just not the most important aspect of him to him. So this fic deals with Bruce Wayne finally getting a night off. It's his one night. This was his time. Only to find that the Joker has snuck into his bedroom and is waiting for him with a gun. What follows next is an exploration of these two's relationship, the antagonism, and the tension that many read as a UST. Now, while this may be a common theme now, it was not at the time, and indeed, even in comics, it was not popular for the two to pontificate out loud about their relationship, which happens nearly constantly now. Though, of course, this plotline had happened beforehand, and indeed had been famously well received already at this point in The Killing Joke. However, it had yet to become a go-to trope, as it seems to be at the time of this recording. So a lot of fans were left to work through that element themselves and really bring it forward, and this fic does so beautifully. It's still a PG rating and definitely worth checking out. For those of you who might be into a newer form of Bat-Jokes, take a look at some classic Bat-Jokes, or just check it out. Next up, time to hop fandoms to what was once a very large looming fandom. Once Upon a Time. Now, Once Upon a Time is one of those series where pretty much every single character can be shipped together. While there are dominant ships, of course, you can pretty much find every other ship as well. If you can think it, there's probably work for it out there. This fandom also had a very healthy fem/fan base, and not just one ship either, there's lots of them. This fic is one of those, pairing the characters of Belle from Beauty and the Beast fame, and Ruby of Little Red Riding Hood fame. This was quite a common pairing for a while, as when Belle fully entered the narrative and was a character again, one of the first things she did, spoilers for those of you who want to start from the beginning, but one of the first things she did was to break away from the Beast, Rumple, for a time. And she started working at a library, and she made a friend, Ruby. A lot of people felt that the dynamic that she had with Rumple could be recreated in a much healthier way with Ruby, and they were interested in exploring that point. Now, we also need to dive even further into spoiler territory to explain the premise of this fic. So, within the realm of Storybrooke, the town in which the magical cursed creatures inhabit, yes, I'm sure if you don't watch the show this all sounds very ludicrous, all of the townsfolk have been cursed. Most of them. And they have another personality. Their cursed personality, who they were living out their lives as. In Belle's case, hers was not activated right away, and so it was later on that viewers were graced with Lacey, Belle's bad girl counterpart. She loved to party, drink, and shoot pool. And a lot of fans found themselves in an interesting conundrum in that they liked Belle and Lacey, and wanted to find a way that they could enjoy both characters. But how? Well, fanfiction to the rescue. This is both a pairing fic and a Lacey fic. This fic is called Livin' La Vida Lacey by the Baby Tiger. 1 chapter, word count 5,436. This fic is a coming together fic, and deals with the fact that there are probably lots more people in Storybrooke than we ever see, and some of them would probably only have known Belle as Lacey. In this fic, Belle has been living a double life, wherein she still pretends to be Lacey for the people who knew her that way, and Belle for the people who know her that way. Well, Ruby can't have that, and so it's Ruby to the rescue to try and help Belle merge these two aspects of her personality together and be able to live a less Parent Trap style switcheroo life. It's fun, it's sweet, and really dives deep into the aspect of the dual personalities of the cursed inhabitants and what that really means and how they have to reconcile those two parts of themselves together. The show deals with that sometimes, not all the time, and only with the characters it deems relevant. So if this sounds intriguing to you, definitely check it out. And hey, more Fem/. Next up is our series rec. Get ready. 4-part series. We're hopping back into a superhero-esque fandom for this, a crossover merging of fandoms. For this, we have to take elements from Smallville and from the DCU, that being just the general DC universe. At this point, pre-New 52, because that matters for the characterization of one of the characters. So, time for comic book backstory, which of course means potential spoilers, because it is almost impossible to figure out where people are in the comics realm, because it is ever-shifting, ever-moving, ever-retconning. There was a period in time in the DCU where Connor Kent, aka Superboy, was the biological product of DNA between Lex and Clark. Essentially, he was their son. This was explored in the series Young Justice, as well as the Teen Titans comic run by Jeff Jones. At the same time this comic run is occurring, you also have Smallville, the giant Superman prequel series that is both loved and hated by some, and also extremely shipped. The dominant pairing from that was, of course, Lex and Clark. For in that series, it very much explored the idea that these two had had a very close friendship that was doomed to fail. Just on paper, you can already hear how shippable it was. Many fans enjoyed elements from all of these universes combined. And so, what better way to bring them together than fanfiction? These fics deal with Connor discovering that part of his heritage comes from Lex, and wanting to spend more time with him and get to know him, and also deal with a Clark who really doesn't want that because, well, it's Lex, and not just because Lex is a supervillain, but also he has all these past complicated feelings with Lex, some of them extremely romantic.
Hello, Clark. Can't say I love what you've done with the place.
Lex.
You still say it the same way. Astonishment, mixed with a hint of dread, yet with a hopeful finish.
So this series deals with several different scenarios that brings Connor and Clark and the Kents into contact with Lex, and how that plays out and what that does for their relationship. So, I'm gonna wreck them all. The first part is called Pars Patris, chapter count 3, word count 8,994. Second part, Talis Filius, chapter count 2, word count 7,375. Part 3, Flesh and Blood, 1 chapter, word count 4,901. And finally, Duplicate, chapter count 1, word count 5,299. All by Curly Q Cal. Out of all of them, my favorite is the second part. But I couldn't just wreck the second part to you. That would be like just wrecking one Harry Potter book to you. No, you have to enjoy the whole series and see which one is your favorite, if any. For those of you who like a slow burn, gentle build, and following different characters' perspectives in a very fair fashion, this series is definitely for you. Also for those of you who really like the Smallville characterization of Clark that acknowledges that he's flawed and has feelings and sometimes makes mistakes. Clark's not perfect. The image of Superman is. They're different. Different things. So, with all of that wholesomeness out of the way, we have to get dark. It's time to get dark. I actually have enough recs for an entire dark episode, but I don't know if we're ready for that yet. Let me know down below if you're ready to get full dark, because I am. For this, again, we're in a DCU-ish fandom. I don't know how it happened, everything I scrolled to ended up being more superhero-y this week. I'll try and make it more random next week. I'm gonna reject things in the same fandom. But this one, when I reread it, I remembered exactly why I had saved it. This is called Downward Spiral by Blue Tears 7. 1 chapter, word count 11,472. This is a Nolanverse fic, and we're dealing with the Batman Begins era. When the Nolanverse first began, it was instantly extremely popular. And to understand that, it is important to understand the landscape of superhero movies at the time, moving out of an era of extreme camp, which people had begun to tire of. So for many, Nolan's hyper-realism, which was born of a time wherein hyper-realistic films were extremely popular across genres, especially action, was refreshing to some, and they felt it was more accessible. Indeed, for many, this made Batman accessible to a new audience, who perhaps weren't willing to suspend their disbelief for the more comic booky aspects of the series. In all fairness, it also got people into those aspects by drawing them into the mythos, and then allowing them to explore it at their own pace. Regardless of how one feels about each film in the series, one of the things that was often praised for was its villain casting, and this included the casting of Cillian Murphy as Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow. Mileage varies on how much depth these films have, and how much of it is shown versus how much of it is told. And as a result, there are many who feel that there are gaps or edges wherein they could explore. And of course, as always with any fandom, there is kink. This fic marries them all together. It is a pairing fic between Jonathan Crane and Bruce Wayne / Batman. It takes place very much as a light AU, that being a retelling of elements within the story through missing scenes. So the rest of the story remains intact, but these elements are inserted. So that's why it's such a mild AU. We're not going Regency or Mermaid, but it is still different. This fic deals with Jonathan Crane's descent into madness and fully becoming the Scarecrow.
Would you like to see my mask?
And how that plays into a light BDSM relationship with both Bruce Wayne and Batman. This fic is dark. It's smutty. It deals with all kinds of uncomfortable themes about mental health and sex and just gritty darkness, which the Nolanverse really reveled in, even if it didn't fully examine the implications of all the things it was putting forth. So if that sounds like something that would be up your alley, this fic is definitely for you. Of course, all warnings apply, so if it sounds like something that would really bother you or squick you out, stay away. It has an excellent characterization of Jonathan Crane and also one for Bruce, because Bruce's characterization is very much lacking within the Nolanverse films, because as Christopher Nolan himself stated, he didn't view Bruce as a character, but rather as a mask. So much of the Bruce characterization that you end up seeing comes from within the fandom, basically a fan version of Bruce versus the on-screen one. But that also means that you have a lot to play with, which makes this Bruce very appealing for certain shippers, because you can slot him into many different arenas because he's so blank. Although again, mileage varies. Some people feel he is very heavily characterized. Let me know what you think down below. Also, how you like the Nolanverse in general, because there are so many DC verses to choose from these days. This, of course, brings us to the fan recs. I do read the comments, like I said at the beginning, I do read the comments you guys leave me and I screen grab them, and when I have time, I read a fic. And this week I enjoyed so many so much that I had to give more than one rec. I have to give two, actually three, because one is a series, because I can't stop, won't stop. So let's get started. Our first fan rec comes to us from Seely E. I think people on this channel might really like the two-shot fic Passing Through by Flying Carpet on AO3. Rated E, about 8,000 words if you read both parts. It's an older fic, circa 2009 I think. A crossover femme/fic between Faith Lehane from Buffy and Jo Harville from Supernatural. It keeps them both so in character while flawlessly marrying and expanding the worlds of both series. And it's also so hot. Both of these ladies deserve better, and for a brief moment they find that in each other. So that's my rec. So this one is a crossover fic. Now right off the bat, these aren't for everybody. Some people very much like the universes to stay in their own lanes, while others revel in the idea of finding ways that disparate or thematically similar works could come together, as is the case here, as this is not the first time that someone has tried to pair a hunter and a slayer. Any of the concepts of demon hunting very much run through both works, and so it feels like a universe wherein the two could both exist and conceivably not know about the other, until they meet, as these are meant to be very solitary lifestyles. This series has two parts, the first fic being called Passing Through, the second being called Knife, Gun, and Stake. First part, 1 chapter, 2,576 words. Second part, again, 1 chapter, this time 5,869 words. Many feel that both of these characters deserved more love and were dealt a bit of a bad hand by canon, and that they were hardcore too, and better than the other characters on offer. Of course, mileage varies on that point. However, there are some who feel that these two killer ladies could perhaps find some contentment and love together, and that they already seem like they would have a lot in common, and that they would be able to vibe and banter well. And of course, kill a whole bunch of vampires, and other things. So if the idea of these two ladies teaming up and more sounds like it's right up your alley, then these are definitely fics for you. They also work very well as seamless crossover fics. They are small though, so it's not drawing upon a lot of the outside universe, so if you like that, this is for you. If not, you may wish there was a bit more coming from the overall worlds. Of course, the only way to know is to check it out. Next up is a long one. I'm still working my way through it, but there's very little that could happen at this point that would make me stop loving it. This one was suggested by Caitlin Dimmick. Okay, so my rec for this week is Anyway I've Been There by Caleb Nova. This is a Gravity Falls fanfic and one of the best in my opinion. It starts off as a gen fic that deals with Dipper and Mabel readjusting to life back in Piedmont after surviving Weirdmageddon, but then it seamlessly transitions into the best slow burn Differ Pacifica ship fic I've ever read. So yes, Gravity Falls, the for some surprise animated favorite that looked like it was going to be very childish based on its premise and animation style, but actually ended up having a lot for many demographics, especially for older viewers. Lots of interesting jokes, sci-fi references, and just a very solid storyline that built upon itself to a very satisfactory conclusion that left you wanting more, but at the same time glad that it ended when it did, so you could live in that moment of a series that was good. That being if you liked it, of course. If not, you were probably just glad it was over. Because so many people wanted more, there are a lot of continuation fics. More summers, more years, aged up, all kinds of fics in this fandom. And of course, pairing fics. This fic is Anyway I've Been There by Caleb Nova. Chapters 67, I know. Word count 151,342. And that is and counting, because occasionally the author will add update summer chapters. That being, whenever they get an idea, they'll continue the story. But the main story itself is complete. These are just really fun add-ons for people who enjoy the story and really want it to continue, especially with these characterizations, because the characterizations in this fic are solid. This deals with the twins returning home after the summer and having a hard time adjusting, particularly Dipper, who just can't seem to get back into the swing of things, and he realizes how much he has been changed by his experiences in Gravity Falls, both for the worse and for the better. It brings in so many of the characters, and they're all so lovingly characterized. Everything is so well thought out, and it sucks you in. It's one of those works where everything feels complete, and when you're reading it, you can just get lost and just forget that you're reading a fic. It just feels very much like a continuation of the world itself, or at least it could. And before you know it, you may have gone through 5, 6, 7, 8 chapters all at once. While it is definitely on the longer side and may take you a while, I can say that if you are a fan of this fandom and these characters and just slow explorations of canon, this is definitely for you. If you wished for more Gravity Falls, well, this fic is here to give it to you. And it has a lot to give you, so that's a good thing. People tend to focus on Gravity Falls for its more odd ships, but there is a lot of really solid gen and what one would consider standard pairing works out there as well. This one makes a really hard case for Dipper and Pacifica, so maybe also if it wasn't something you were intrigued by, this might change your mind. Not that you need your mind changed, but sometimes it's just interesting to explore fics with different outlooks or mindsets or pairings than what you tend to normally gravitate towards. Get outside your comfort zone. Read more fics. Fics all the time. Constantly. So that's it for this week's Recs. There were a lot of them, and I loved it. I hope you loved it too. Do you like more Recs? Less Recs? Just let me know all your feelings down below. Also, if you check anything out, let me know what you're gonna check out and what you thought of it. Also, again, please leave more Recs down below. I am very much enjoying them. This is just a wonderful fic exchange. There is so much beautiful fic out there, and the people need to know. Tell the people. As always, if you haven't already, well then please do follow on social media to keep up to date with what we're doing and just to come over and have some general chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. Please subscribe if you haven't already and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Also, please share vids around. It really does help out with the algorithm, for YouTube is strange and mysterious and nebulous. Now for some of you who know that this is the Ship-a-Ween month, you may be wondering, why no costume shippers guide? There are only so many low-budget costumes that can be done. Also, one last question before you go. As I mentioned, I've fallen down a Venom rabbit hole. Have you fallen into any fandoms lately? Do you have any new ships or just new worlds that you're just living in right now? Let me know. I always enjoy having more fandom rabbit holes to tumble down. It's exciting. So, thank you so much for watching. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. And now, let's get to that outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to make these videos possible. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.